So today we are doing an M1 Finance portfolio update. Currently, we are actually sitting at $393,000. So by far, this is the highest number we have on camera when we go through and do these recordings. Now, in this video, we actually have had one of the biggest month gains that I've seen so far from this portfolio. So we're gonna actually see that right over here. Our market gain is $31,300. We actually put very little cash in this last month. And you can see the money weighted return as of right now is 8.66%. This is pretty much from almost one stock as of right now, maybe two actually, if I remember correctly, and we'll actually show you here which of those companies are actually kind of causing this huge growth over the last month. But this is honestly pretty incredible. I have not been investing as much as, again, you can see that $645 as I have been earlier this year and definitely from last year in 2023 as well as 2022. The market's obviously gotten much hotter, and for some reason when the market goes up, I'm actually less likely to be buying. It's a little harder for me when my average cost is much lower. I tend to buy on the dip for my holdings. So again, I'll show you which companies had this market gain over here so you can take a look at it. So I'm really excited because we're getting I was looking at the margin for a second. Our total amount right there, we're getting really close to 400,000. And before you worry about something like this, when you're like, hey, I'm just getting started, I do like to show this to people first and foremost. Let me clean up the screen here. If I go down here to January, it's around January 22nd, I think is when I started this, or January 19th. I started with $100 in this account, and I kept putting money in and then kept going and growing it, learning it, making mistakes, gaining more information, and feeling more confident to add more. And as I started gaining more income, I was able to put in larger sums, but it's better to start small and continue to increase. So just always a nice little reminder for people. If you want to check out the platform I'm using, which is M1 Finance, I'll always have them in the link in the show notes down below. That does help me create more content like this, also helps me invest more as well too. So I really appreciate that. And one thing I do also want to showcase here, and I think this is really cool. Let's go over the last year. So I think I missed it by a day. So technically yesterday, if I had recorded, it would have shown you. I just had hit 200,000, I believe. One of the very first times, I think there was a few bumps up and down, but you can see right over here on October 31st of 2023, we hit just a little bit over $200,000 in this account, which was already pretty mind-blowing to see that amount of growth. A lot of that was the money we were putting in. Obviously, at the time, the market was still kind of up and down, a little bit more on the down end, so we were still investing a lot more heavily. And then as the year continued on, and you could see here, over this year, we actually hit that 300,000 marker around the April timeframe, right? So we went from 200,000 in October, and then in April, we hit over 300,000. So, depending on how the market's going to go over the next couple of days or even the next few weeks, we are looking to potentially hit that 400,000. So it's not going to be exactly 1 year to essentially double the amount of money in this portfolio. You can see how much we put in over the last year, but then you can see the total market gain as well, plus all the dividends that we earned on top of that as well. Let's go back to how we did over this last month, and I'll show you the different companies that pretty much had the largest impact just in this month. But before I even do that, we are actually at the end of October, and I just wanted to take a quick peek at our dividends. Obviously, I like to share my dividends and what we're doing. So you could see here, we only had one company. I'm going to zoom in here for a second. By the way, this is my spreadsheet. If you want this spreadsheet, I'll have it available for purchase in the show notes down below. Also helps me out, something I just put together myself. I love tracking and seeing how we've improved over the years. So you can see we made a total of $3.30. It was actually from our ETF that got paid out in this given month, but typically we don't really worry too much about what we earn in October. We're excited for November and December. You could see the last 2 months of Q3 and how we did, and we're expecting that similar kind of performance and maybe a little bit higher, but things are looking pretty solid for this year. We're obviously already well over what we made last year, which is always great to see. Dividend increases happen because of that, and then also with the amount of investments that we're doing. Obviously, since we're slowing down over the last couple of months of how much we're putting in, this is going to be something where, it's going to show up later maybe with not having as much of an increase in our dividend income compared to, years prior. But I still have a lot of hope with a lot of the dividend increases are going to be happening next year, which if I go back to this tab over here that I've created recently, a lot of the companies I have increase their dividend payouts in like February and April. And some of the companies I actually have now, such as Google and Meta, as well as, who else was it? Booking.com. None of these companies paid out dividends before, and they just started recently. So what's really nice is I'm seeing my expectation for these companies are they're going to be really strong double-digit dividend growth over the next several years, if not maybe the next 10 years. And that's going to have a huge impact on how much we're going to be earning in our dividends. So of course, make sure you're following along to keep track of that. So let's go back into our portfolio here. And let's go ahead and check out and see which companies, making sure that we're in the last month here. So obviously you could see here the way M1 Finance works. I have these companies in different slices just to kind of organize them a little bit more. And you can see which ones in the slices have had an impact. We've actually had a couple down right over here. So we've had our retail as well as our tech. So if I actually go into these right here, you can see with our tech, we have Microsoft and Apple. And Apple over the last month has been down. Microsoft has been up just a little bit, but in connection together, it's still been down. Nothing to worry about. None of these are any companies that I've been investing in too much recently. I think I've been putting a tiny bit into Microsoft just because of that performance that they've had over the last while. And you can see our retail over here, Home Depot and Costco over the last month haven't been doing too hot. I'm still kind of debating on Home Depot. I might have mentioned it in a previous video, but the amount of debt that Home Depot constantly keeps having on their books is not something that I really like. I think it's a little weird for me to want to keep on holding, but they've performed well overall in the portfolio, so I'm not too worried about it at the moment. So it would be something that happens maybe a little bit later. So those are the companies that are obviously not performing well, but then when you look at the rest of these, you could see the really big standout as well as the growth slice that I have here. So let's go into this one really quick. In this one, we have Google, Amazon, and Meta. But you can see right over here, Google has had the largest percentage growth as a whole here. And right now, this is actually one of our largest holdings. We've put in about 46 here with a total of $128 as an average price with 363 shares for the company. We were buying more recently too, just because the suppression that this company has had with its PE ratio, loved it. It was under 23. So we were definitely buying into that. But obviously, we're here to see the large company in our finances. So if you haven't been following along already on this portfolio, so the company that's had such a massive growth right now has been with Sofi. We've also had some really nice increase with Discover. Ally's actually taken a huge dip over this last 3 months. So if it weren't for that, this would actually probably be a little bit higher. But let's go ahead and take a look at our Sofi here. Now, if you're somebody that's a little bit newer to the channel, obviously my portfolio is called Dividend, but Sofi doesn't pay out a dividend, at least not yet. And ideally, if in the future they do, that's going to be great. If not, we can always sell the company and move this money over into a dividend paying stock. So right now they're at $11.22. And you can see here we have in this account right now, we have about 6,490 shares at an average price of $7.07. Now, even with this really nice rally that they've had over, the little bit of time here, you can see it's grown over $21,800. I'm not planning on selling at this moment. I'm planning on holding on for quite some time, either again by having a large growth based off of where they're looking to go, or if they end up paying out a dividend, having almost $7,000 or 7,000 shares in this company, it's going to be a really, really nice dividend. And it being effectively a bank company, or a bank stock, I should say, that's going to be really nice based off of how previous companies have paid and the amount of cash flow that this company is going to be able to generate compared to a lot of the old school type of banks, because they don't obviously have branches and a lot of other overhead that some of those companies do as well. But of course, we'll see how that plays out for us. And if some of the things change, I will obviously make changes to the portfolio. I'm not one to, try to, just stick with a company just because I've had them for long enough. But if they are changing their patterns or changing their direction, I will also change my decision with holding those companies. But of course, make sure you're subscribed to be able to follow along with that. And then all the resources, like I said, will be in the show notes down below for you. So that way you can go ahead and check out M1 Finance, or if you want to check out my dividend tracker spreadsheet, you can go ahead and purchase that as well. Now, also too, if you want to keep on learning more when it comes to my portfolio, as well as just investing in general, check out my next video right over here on screen to keep learning.